On March 28, 2025, the city of Mandalay, Myanmar, was immersed in the daily atmosphere with the familiar sounds of life. People were bustling, children were playing, and the markets were full of life as usual. In the midst of these activities, Mrs. Ong, a 65-year-old woman, was preparing lunch for her family in her beloved small house. Suddenly, a strange noise rang out, followed by violent vibrations that shook everything in the house. The walls cracked into large pieces. Before Mrs. Ong could understand what was happening, she collapsed to the floor. She tried to shout for her relatives, but the sound of rocks and earth, and the cries for help from her neighbors overwhelmed everything. That was the fateful moment when a 7.7 magnitude earthquake struck central Myanmar. In an instant, the entire city of Mandalay seemed to be plunged into a terrifying nightmare with smoke and dust, screams and cries echoing everywhere. This historic earthquake left behind serious consequences with more than 1,600 people killed, thousands injured, and countless missing. Buildings collapsed, historical structures that were once the pride of the city are now just ruins. A state of emergency was declared. Rescue forces worked day and night to search for survivors under thick layers of earth and rock. Elderly people like Ms. Ong, with poor health and slower reaction times, often face higher risks when encountering dangerous situations such as earthquakes. The reality from this terrible earthquake clearly shows that preparation and knowledge of prevention can decide the lives of many people, especially the most vulnerable elderly group. Therefore, this video will provide extremely important notes to help the elderly aged 60 and over increase their chances of survival when encountering an earthquake. Here are 7 practical and concrete tips to help you protect yourself and your loved ones in the face of an unexpected disaster. Follow along to find out what you need to know so you never have to face the same situation as Aung San Suu Kyi and thousands of other people in Myanmar. By understanding and remembering these important principles, you will stay proactive, calm, and significantly increase your chances of survival when an earthquake strikes. 7 important tips to help the elderly increase their chances of surviving an earthquake. An earthquake is a sudden and dangerous natural event, especially for the elderly, due to their slow reaction time and weakened health. To protect yourself and your loved ones, keep in mind the 7 practical tips below to increase your chances of surviving an earthquake. Always have an emergency bag ready. An emergency bag is a small bag containing essential items such as daily medications, spare glasses, identification, a small amount of cash, a small bottle of water, biscuits, a small flashlight, spare batteries, and a small whistle to call for help. For the elderly, this bag is extremely necessary because their health is easily affected if they do not evaluate and receive medical care in time. The emergency bag should be placed near the door or right next to the bed for easy access when needed. For example, Mrs. Mary, 72 years old, always keeps her emergency bag right next to her bed. When the earthquake happened in the middle of the night, she quickly grabbed her bag and moved safely out of the house without having to panic and search for essential items. Identify safe shelters in advance. Safe places are places like under sturdy tables, sturdy corners, or next to sturdy furniture to protect the body from falling debris and objects during an earthquake. Elderly people need to proactively learn and identify these places in the house so that they can quickly find them when necessary. For example, Mr. James, 75 years old, always identifies the location under the sturdy wooden dining table. When shaking occurs, he quickly takes shelter here and avoids injury. Do not move far during shaking. During an earthquake, the ground shakes strongly, making it easy for elderly people to fall and get injured. The best way is to sit or lie down in the current position, using your hands or soft objects to protect your head and neck to avoid injury from falling objects. For example, Mrs. Linda, 68 years old, sat down on the floor next to the sofa when the earthquake occurred, covering her head and neck, thereby avoiding injury from falling objects. Always have a means of communication with you. Elderly people should always carry a mobile phone or write down important emergency phone numbers. This makes it easy for them to contact relatives or rescue teams in an emergency. For example, Mr. Frank, 80 years old, always keeps his phone with him and immediately contacted his family when he was trapped after the recent small earthquake. Do not use elevators during an earthquake. When an earthquake occurs, elevators can lose power and pose a danger to people inside. Seniors should stay away from elevators and only use the stairs when the earthquake has completely stopped. For example, Susan, 71 years old, used the stairs to safely evacuate the building after a mild earthquake. Practice drills regularly. Regular earthquake drills help seniors become familiar with and remember the safety steps they need to take. This reduces the risk of panic and helps them react more quickly when a real situation occurs. For example, Tom and Jane, 74 years old, regularly conduct drills with their children and grandchildren. When the earthquake actually occurred, they both calmly performed the steps they had practiced, so everyone was safe. Stay calm and control your breath. Staying calm is an important key to overcoming an earthquake crisis. Keeping calm and breathing evenly helps the elderly stay alert and make wise decisions to protect themselves. For example, when the earthquake occurred, Mrs. Nancy, 77 years old, tried to stay calm and breathe slowly. Thanks to that, she calmly chose a safe place and protected herself. Hopefully, with these 7 practical notes, the elderly will always be more proactive, safe, and calm when facing the risk of an earthquake. If you find the information useful, please comment your opinion below, share this video with relatives and friends, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel to receive more useful information.